Does your company, does my company provide security, medical, evac, all the things that you need when you're going into harm's way? And does the candidate, the guy who's traveling or the team that's traveling, do they have the right to say no? Nope, this is not safe. I'm not going. And will the company take retribution for that? Or is it okay to say no when in their best professional opinion, it's not safe, there's not enough time? Does the company provide the right gear? You know all the stuff, GPS, sat phone, cell phone, you name it. Lots of things you gotta have. First aid kits, cash, dollars or gold even in some cases. And importantly, who is personally responsible for that operation? Who is watching that team or that asset wherever they are? I mean personally responsible. And this is the guy I would say, we lose him, you're on the burial detail. You take him to the family. You explain what happened. Is he watching, is that person watching for regional developments, intel in the region that might hurt the team without their knowledge? Is he listening for comm checks that ought to be regular and monitored? And even more subtle, is he listening to little changes in the voice, octave up, usually, when you're in a tight situation, maybe panic is beginning to set in. And finally, who can shut down the operation? Can the guy on the ground, or does he have to get the manager's approval to pull out? Maybe he needs the vice president because this is a big contract, we got to be there. Some ethical considerations. And I bring this up because, as Joe mentioned, I'm now the compliance and ethics and compliance officer. And I think that's what happens when old soldiers, when their skills degrade to the point that they're dangerous to themselves and others. You get a job like this. But I'm excited about it, and I think we can make a difference. Keeping at the tactical level, I'm going to throw out a couple of scenarios, cases, war stories, what have you. And as I look around the room, I see Jim, a guy I just met, Dan O'Shaughnessy. I see a lot of grizzled old veterans who I'm sure will have ideas, maybe differences, which we can kick around in the Q&A. But let me just throw out a couple of case studies, lessons learned that are actual and they are true. Long-term stay. I was in Ankara for 3 years. We had just sold about $1 billion worth of helicopters to the Turkish military, who were using them to chase down the PKK. As you know, remember them, folks out in the southeast part of Turkey and northern Iraq. The problem was, I was the new manager. I had to be high profile. I was still trying to sell. I was still trying to support, make friends, and all that sort of thing. So I had a high profile job, and because it got to the attaché and actually 2 other US executives within a space of about a year, I knew it was a great risk. So how do you balance those 2 things? High vis, high risk. What do? Put yourself in that place. You got to show the flag, but you know the flag puts a bullseye on you. What would you do, and more importantly, what would be the first thing you'd do? And what would turn out to be the single most important factor in keeping you safe? I know what I did. I called for help. I thought I knew a bit about staying alive, but I knew I didn't know everything. And I knew I didn't have that set of additional eyes looking and auditing my situation, so I called for help. Characteristic of a commercial company, a week later, I had a security expert from corporate in Ankara with me, auditing what I did, surveying where I lived, where I worked, how I got there. That's pretty quick. We didn't have to wait, for example, for the Defense and Logistics Agency risk assessment team to schedule and plan a visit to my fair apartment. They were there in a week. They knew there was a problem. The thing that turned out to be the single best device, it's so simple it's embarrassing to say, is just random action. Now that's an old principle in our business, random anti-terrorism measures, RAM. But I made it so simple that I actually did it each and every day. I brought a pair of dice, kept them in my pocket, had a little card in my wallet with 6 different ways to get to work and 6 different times. And I'd roll the dice. And no matter who was waiting, no matter what else was going on, it told me how I went and when I went. My driver didn't know, nobody knew. This worked well. I don't know if it helped, but I know this, it helped me sleep at night, helped me do my job, stay high-vis, but stay safe. Mark Grossman, our outstanding ambassador in Turkey at the time, actually talked about that in a recent article to Washington Post. He used that technique and had his staff do it because we're essentially unarmed, unprotected. Short-term problem. Okay, you're now in Baghdad for about a month, you hope, but you never know how long it'll be. Different problem. Probably they don't have, the bad guys don't have the time to really make you as a target, track you, surveil you, put a plan together and execute it. But you got a different problem. You don't want to blunder into some kind of a dangerous situation because you don't know what to do. Totally different approach. Here well, a little more background. I was working in Taji as a gate guard a couple months before that. I say gate guard, that's really being a little generous. I was the only guy on Medicare on the East Gate. And so after about a month, 2 months of that, they decided I needed to go somewhere else like Baghdad and drum up some new business. I went to Baghdad with all the support of the company, but I'd done my thinking and I knew I could do it safely. I felt I could do it safely. The key principles there in a short-term situation like a tourist, trusted agents. It's not randomness, it's having a trusted agent so you don't blunder into something that's going to get you killed. Called General Disney, old-time Special Forces guy, happened to be in the area. He runs a company called Sigma. In the Baghdad, we linked up. He hooked me up with a Shiite family, a wonderful, prominent Shiite family that basically took care of me. The second thing that's important is in the short term, you got to figure out what's your most dangerous. What is the greatest risk? What's the greatest threat, I should say? And to me, the greatest threat in April 04 were the kidnappings. And there again, Dan O'Shaughnessy is an expert on this, eager to find out in the bar if I did the right thing here. But basically, I said, that's what I don't want to have. I'm not going to get my head sawed off on CNN with a rusty butcher knife for my grandkids to watch. So there may be a shootout, but there's not going to be a CNN broadcast. I was sure of that. So I hired a couple of guys from the Shiite family. I trusted them. Trained them as a little PSD team. These were former UN drivers, outstanding young men. It was very simple.